My name is Samantha. My sister, Chloe, got a big promotion last spring. It was one of those company-shaking announcements, complete with champagne in the office, a senior management role, a corner office, the whole 9 yards. My parents were ecstatic. They took Chloe and her boyfriend on a week-long, all-inclusive, 5-star and then some luxury cruise through the Mediterranean. They posted photos every day, dinners on deck, matching robes, sunset toasts with captions like, "So proud of our girl." I, of course, liked the photos, sent a congratulatory text, and even called Chloe before they left, saying, "Well deserved, sis." Then I went back to my routine. 3 months later, I also got promoted. It wasn't as grand as Chloe's promotion, but it was still a big step. I was moved into a leadership role in my company's analytics department. It was the first time I was managing people, the first time my name appeared in the internal newsletter. I told my parents at dinner. They smiled, said, "That's great." My dad nodded, added a "very good." My mom asked about the dress code in the new role, and then the conversation quickly shifted back to Chloe. Her boyfriend had just opened an electronics store. They had adopted a dog. I didn't expect an identical trip to theirs, but I imagined there might be something. A card, a toast, a gesture. Instead, they went to their lake house that weekend, just the two of them. No invitation, no message, just a selfie from the pier with another caption. Finally, some peace and quiet. At first, I told myself it didn't matter. Not everything needed to be celebrated. Not everything needed fanfare. But 2 weeks later, I found out from my aunt that my parents had offered to pay for Chloe's wedding venue. They weren't even engaged yet. When I asked my mom about it, she brushed it off. "We just want to make sure they'll be set when the time comes." Well established, as if they were preparing a future they assumed I didn't need or deserve. I thought about confronting them, but I didn't want to seem jealous, petty, or like I was keeping score. So, I buried the subject until my birthday arrived. It fell on a Tuesday. I didn't expect anything grand, maybe dinner, maybe a cake. But when I called to ask if they were free, my dad said they were leaving town for a quick getaway. I asked where. "Same cruise line we took with Chloe," he said. "They gave us a discount for being loyal customers." I didn't say anything. He filled the silence with a little laugh. "Well, we'll take you next time." But we both knew there wouldn't be a next time. Not for me. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, eating takeout, while watching their new cruise photos. Chloe had commented on one. "Looks familiar." Dozens of likes. But no one mentioned me. No one ever did. And it was then that something in me changed. Not to anger, not yet, but to awareness. This wasn't about a trip. It was about position, about how they saw me. Not as the second daughter, but as the one who didn't need anything, the one they could ignore because I wouldn't complain, because I never made a scene. They thought they knew me, but that was about to change. 2 weeks after their second cruise, we had a family dinner. It wasn't anything formal, just a Sunday barbecue at my parents' house, the kind of thing we always did. Chloe and her boyfriend were there, as were 2 aunts, an uncle, and our cousin Jessica. I almost didn't go, but something in me wanted to see if they would say something, if the vacation photos posted on my birthday would come with a hint of apology, an acknowledgement, a belated toast, anything. Instead, I got a nod from my dad and a half hug from my mom. No happy birthday, no how's the new job, no let's sit down and catch up. The topic of the night was again Chloe. Her company had invited her to speak at a regional leadership summit. My parents smiled as she described the invitation, the guest list, and the speakers. Everyone applauded. Someone asked if she was nervous. Her boyfriend said, "She was born for this." I took a sip of my juice and watched. No one asked about my promotion, not once. When the food came, I helped carry drinks from the kitchen. No one noticed. I refilled glasses, picked up a plate someone dropped. I remained invisible. At one point, my mom asked if I could take a group photo. I held the phone, centered them, and saw a snapshot of everyone beaming, hugging, Chloe at the center, and me not in the picture. Literally. She didn't ask me to get in the photo. I handed the phone back and went inside, under the pretense of checking a message. But I didn't leave immediately. I stayed in the hallway, out of sight, and listened. They were talking about Christmas plans. Chloe and her boyfriend were going on a trip abroad, their gift to themselves, my mom said. My dad offered to help with the tickets. No one hesitated. No one wondered if I'd be around. No one asked what I was doing. It was as if I were a guest in the house where I grew up, useful when they needed me, invisible the rest of the time. It was then that I decided something. I wasn't going to argue about the past. I wasn't going to ask why they treated me like a secondary character in my own family. But I was going to start responding differently. So when Christmas came, I didn't send gifts. I didn't show up. I didn't text to explain. I let the silence speak. My mom called 3 days later. We missed you. I told her I was busy with work. You could have said something, she mumbled. I thought about it, I replied, but then I remembered you didn't say anything when you went on a cruise on my birthday. She was quiet, then said, almost defensively, it wasn't meant to hurt you. We didn't think you'd care that much. That sentence settled deep in my chest. Not because it was cruel, but because it was honest. They didn't think I'd care because I had trained them not to care. I hung up shortly after, politely, without anger, just resolved. The next family event, I declined, said I had plans. The one after that, I didn't respond at all. And slowly, the invitations came less frequently. They still saw Chloe every week, still posted brunch photos, still tagged each other in articles about young professionals on the rise. Me? I became a ghost in my own lineage. And for the first time, I stopped trying to haunt it. I stopped measuring my accomplishments by who noticed them. There's a quiet shift that happens when you finally stop expecting recognition from people who have made it clear they aren't paying attention to you. I focused on work, not in the sense of burying my feelings in my job, but truly focused. I started proposing projects for higher roles, took risks, began managing a team that doubled in size in less than a year. Eventually, I moved into a role with oversight of 3 departments, not just numbers, strategy, direction. My name started appearing in industry newsletters. I spoke on a panel, mentored junior employees. I was no longer seeking approval. I was seeking what I knew I was capable of doing, and I was achieving it. That year, I bought a space. Not a huge house, but an apartment in a city I loved. Bright, clean, close to a park, with a balcony that caught the best kind of late afternoon light. I threw a housewarming party, invited colleagues, some university friends, and my neighbors. My parents weren't on the list. Neither was Chloe. Not because I wanted to hurt them, but I didn't want to perform for them anymore. I didn't want to see them compare what I had built to what Chloe had most recently posted. I didn't want their approval as a stamp in a passport I had already earned. Then something unexpected happened. An old friend of my parents, someone I barely knew but who had seen me a few times as a child, messaged me on LinkedIn. Short, polite. Heard about your recent success. Congratulations. Your parents must be so proud. I stared at it, felt something tighten in my chest. Because no, they weren't proud. They hadn't said a word. They hadn't asked about the new job, never called when my name was listed in a professional profile summary, never mentioned the apartment, not even a comment on the photo I posted, the first in 6 months, standing on the new balcony, glass in hand, smiling. They knew, of course they knew. We shared enough connections. People talked. Family friends commented on the post. My cousin messaged me saying she'd shown her mom. They knew, but still silence. Then came Chloe's engagement. It was a full production. Announcement with photos in a field of flowers, a branded hashtag, champagne, and a drone video of the proposal. The caption, she said yes. Couldn't have done it without the people who always believed in me. The first comment was from my mom. "We are so proud of you, darling. You've built something beautiful." I closed the app. Not because I was angry, but because I finally started to feel the difference between being ignored and being free. I didn't send a gift, didn't like the post, didn't reply when my dad texted a week later, saying the engagement party was coming up and they assumed I'd be there. I replied simply, "I won't be attending." No reason, no excuse. And this time, no follow-up. They started to notice the distance. I could feel it in the subtle shifts, the occasional "how are you" texts, the slight hesitations in my mom's voice when she left voicemails. But they didn't associate it with anything they had done, because people who don't see you to begin with can't imagine why you'd disappear. And I wasn't leaving out of spite. I had left because I finally realized you don't owe closeness to people who only call you family when it's convenient. You don't owe your presence at a table where your place was always borrowed, never built. I wasn't seeking applause, not anymore. But when the nomination came, something in me still gleamed. That old instinct, the one that wants someone to notice when you finally break the ceiling they said you'd never touch. The email came from an industry organization I had silently respected for years. Nominated Samantha Jones, Leadership in Technology and Analysis. I read it twice, then just sat there. No smile, no fist pump. Just quiet. Because, for the first time, I knew what it was to be recognized by people who had no obligation to like me, and yet they did. My coworkers raised a toast. They decorated the office kitchen with streamers. Someone baked a cake with my name on it. There were speeches, laughter. Even my old manager sent a handwritten card. "You did this without shortcuts. All earned. All yours." I posted a single photo, just a plaque with my name engraved on the nominees list. No caption. The comments poured in. Old friends, colleagues, professors, some distant relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Like the post, my parents? Nothing. Not even a text. At first, I thought maybe they hadn't seen it. But then I got a text from my cousin Anna. "Saw your name on that nominee list." "I told your mom." She didn't know. She knew. She just didn't say anything. Or didn't want to. Or didn't think it mattered enough to pick up the phone. A week later, the award ceremony took place. Black tie, big venue, formal photos. I didn't win, but I didn't need to. Being nominated was enough. And the room full of people who stood when my name was read aloud. Who saw me. All of me. And then when I got home, I saw it. A comment on one of Chloe's new posts. Another career announcement. Another achievement. And underneath my mom's comment, "We've never been prouder." The timing? 2 hours after my name was read aloud on stage. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat and understood something I didn't want to accept, even after everything. It wasn't about me not being successful enough. It wasn't about me not being flashy. It was about roles. To them, I wasn't the golden child. I was the one who would always figure it out, the one who didn't need support. So they didn't offer it. That night, I opened a document on my laptop and wrote a letter. Not to them. To myself. To the version of me that still wanted them to see, that still waited for the call that would never come. "You're done waiting," I wrote. "You're done proving. They saw you. They just didn't want to admit it. And now you don't need them to." I never sent the letter. I never mentioned the nomination when they finally called weeks later to ask if I'd come to Chloe's wedding. I said, "No." My mom hesitated. "She'd really like you to be there." She never asked. She assumed you would show up. "That's the problem," I said. She was quiet. Then, again defensively, "You don't need to make this so dramatic." "I'm not," I said. "I'm just making it honest." She didn't argue, didn't apologize. Just ended the call with a dry, "Well, take care." And that was it. No follow-up, no explanation. Just the space I had learned to live in. This time finally on my terms. I didn't go to the wedding. Didn't send a gift. Didn't send an apology. Didn't reply to the family group chat when someone posted a photo of Chloe and her husband walking down the aisle under a canopy of fireworks. I muted the conversation. They didn't ask where I was, not directly. But 2 days later, I got a text from my cousin Jessica. We hadn't spoken in over a year. No fights. Just the distance, the kind that happens when you live different lives long enough. "Hey, I don't want to be weird, but are you okay?" she asked. I replied, "Yes, why?" "Everyone noticed you weren't at the wedding. Your mom seemed kind of off about it. I figured you might have had a reason." I thought for a minute, then replied, "She knew I wasn't coming." "Yeah," she said. "But I don't think she thought you'd follow through." That sentence struck me, because it was true. They were used to me caving, to showing up, to filling the space when no one else would, to keeping the peace by staying silent. But this time, I wasn't feeling anything, and the absence left a shape they couldn't smooth over. Jessica texted again a day later, "I talked to your Aunt Lucy. She said something kind of weird." "Go on." "Your dad told some people you've been doing your own thing for a while, but he didn't say what it was." I stared at the message. "So they don't even tell people what I do?" "I guess not," she said. He changed the subject really fast. It wasn't just that they weren't proud of me. They were embarrassed by what they couldn't control. I didn't fit their version of family success. I didn't ask for help, didn't depend on them, didn't play the role they had scripted for me. So instead of acknowledging my path, they pretended it didn't exist. That way, they never had to explain why they supported one daughter with trips, funding, and applause, and left the other to build her future from nothing. Later that week, Jessica and I had coffee. She asked more questions about my work, my move, my life. She said she felt bad for not keeping in touch. "I guess I thought you were too busy," she said. I told her, "but not for this." We sat in silence for a while. Then she said something that hit me harder than I expected. "I always thought they treated you differently. I just didn't realize how much you were carrying." That was the thing. No one ever sees the weight until you finally stop holding it. Before we parted ways, she looked at me and asked, "Do you think you'll ever go back to the family?" "I don't know," I replied. "Maybe. But not as someone waiting to be accepted. Only if I can decide where I put myself." That night, I walked past the framed nomination letter on my way to bed. I used to leave it by the door so I could look at it before heading out to work, a testament that I mattered. Now, it just lived there, quiet, present, like me. I didn't need it to remind me anymore. But I didn't move it either, because some things aren't about being seen. They're about being rooted in who you are, whether someone applauds or not. The message came 6 months after the wedding. Simple. Unexpected. "Hey, are you free to talk sometime?" I stared at it longer than I should have. Chloe wasn't the vague texter type. She was always direct, always a planner, always the golden child with a calendar full of dinner reservations and team meetings. This wasn't like her. I replied 2 hours later, "Sure, what's up?" She asked if we could meet for coffee. I said, "Okay." We picked a place halfway between us, a quiet cafe with wide windows and plenty of empty chairs for a Tuesday afternoon. She looked tired. Still polished, still wearing a blazer that probably cost more than my first month's rent, but there was something worn around the edges, in the way she ran her hand through her hair and how she didn't open with small talk. She just said, "You didn't come to the wedding." I nodded. "No, I didn't." She nodded back. No accusation, just acceptance. "I wasn't surprised," she said after a pause, "but I guess I expected you would." "I know," I said, "but you never asked me to go." "Not directly." "Did I need to?" "That's the point." She looked into her coffee. "I guess I didn't ask because I knew the answer." "And why do you think the answer was no?" I asked. She exhaled. "Because we left you behind. And we acted like you were the one who walked away." That stopped me. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was true. And because it was the first time someone in my family had said it out loud. Do you know what really hurt? I said. It wasn't the cruises or the funding, or even being ignored. What then? It was the silence. It was watching you all celebrate yourselves repeatedly while I stood outside, as if it were normal, as if I were the quiet one, when in fact I just got tired of trying to matter in a room that didn't leave a chair for me. She didn't argue, didn't defend our parents, just listened. They didn't mean for it to be that way, she said finally. I know, I said. But they still did. We talked for over an hour about the differences in our childhood, the small ways they favored her, the assumptions they made about me being okay on my own. And then she said, I guess I enjoyed being the favorite because I didn't know what it was costing you. And I didn't know what being overlooked was doing to me, I said. Until I stopped pretending it didn't hurt. Before we left, she asked if I would consider coming around again. Not for them, just to show up to be seen. Maybe, I said, but it would have to be different. I'd like it to be, she said. That mattered more than she knew, because she wasn't offering a bridge back to the old structure. She was opening a door I didn't have to crawl through. That night, I got a text from her, thanks for today. I hope it's not the last time. I replied, that depends on all of us. And for the first time, I believed we could try. Not because we needed to fix everything, but because we were finally telling the truth. Spring arrived quietly. No announcements, no formal invitations. Just a group text from Chloe thinking of doing a casual dinner at our place next weekend. Open to whoever wants to come. No pressure. I almost ignored it. Not out of bitterness, but because I wasn't sure what showing up would mean. Would it be awkward? Performative? Would it feel like re-entering a house that once forgot I existed? But something about the message was different. No assumptions, no agenda, no passive guilt. Just an opening. So I went. Chloe's house wasn't what I expected. Not flashy, not ostentatious. Just a cozy living room, soft music, a long dining table that looked like it had seen some real conversations. I walked in and, for the first time in years, no one made a big deal about my arrival. No dramatic, look who's here. No wide-eyed surprise. Just Chloe saying, hey, good to see you. And someone else, my cousin, smiling and pulling out a chair. This one's for you. It wasn't a throne. It wasn't carved in gold. It was just an ordinary wooden chair. But it was there on purpose. And that mattered more than anyone in that room could have imagined. We talked briefly about work. I mentioned a new hire, a leadership change. Chloe asked thoughtful questions. No snark, no false surprise in my answers. My Aunt Lucy praised how I handled the community panel she'd seen online. Someone mentioned the wedding, but not as a weapon, just a time marker. And no one tried to make me feel bad for missing it, because they were starting to understand that absence isn't always about rejection. Sometimes, it's the only language someone has when they've been silenced for too long. As the night wound down, Chloe pulled me aside while people were cleaning up. I didn't tell Mom you were coming, she said. I raised an eyebrow. Didn't think she'd want to know. Didn't think it was her business, she said. She'll find out and she'll have feelings, but you don't owe her anything. I nodded. Are you sure she won't give you grief for inviting me? She already does, she smiled. Might as well be worth it. That was the first time I genuinely laughed through all of this. Not ironically, not bitterly. Just relief. Because for the first time, we weren't pretending. As I left that night, Chloe walked me to the door. No heavy words, no dramatic handshakes. Just, next time you bring dessert. And I said, only if I get to choose the playlist. Driving home, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel like I had won an invisible war. I just felt rooted. Like I had finally stopped orbiting a family system that never built space for me and, instead, Watched it slowly bend to meet me halfway. Not because I demanded it, but because I stopped performing for it. Some things hadn't changed. My parents still didn't call, still posted about Chloe, still pretended the distance was a coincidence. But I no longer needed their recognition. I had built something outside their spotlight and let it grow enough that it wouldn't shrink under their shadow. The chair at Chloe's table didn't erase what had happened, but it didn't need to. Because I didn't show up to rewrite the story. I showed up to live it without apology. You don't always get the apology. You don't always get the standing ovation. Sometimes all you get is your name being spoken again, not as an afterthought, but as a person worth pulling a chair for. And sometimes that's more than enough. Thanks for listening to Samantha's story. Have you ever felt overlooked by your own family? Tell your story here in the comments. We'd love to hear it. If you enjoyed Samantha's story, like and share this video to strengthen our community, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories.